it was painful to me as a Black female to see that over the years, over the decades, there are these disparities. There are these wide differences in some cases for some conditions. And what's troubling is that even for women with access to medical care and for Black women with means and insurance, even those women still will lag behind when it comes to a successful healthcare outcome.
Hello, friends. Welcome. Welcome to Insights at the Edge live on Sounds True 1. I'm so pleased to be able to bring you today a very special guest, Dr. Melody T. McCloud. Let me introduce you now to Dr. McCloud. She is an OB-GYN and the founder and medical director of the Atlanta Women's Healthcare Center. She lectures nationwide on women's health, and with Sounds True, she's written a gorgeous new book. It's on Black women's wellness, your I've Got This guide to health, sex, and phenomenal living. Dr. McCloud, welcome. Right here at the beginning, we can talk about this notion. We've got you, I've got this. Your book is called the I've Got This Guide to Health, Sex, and Phenomenal Living. And you start out by talking about someone you call an I've got this woman from history, someone I'd never heard about until I started reading Black Women's Wellness, Dr. Rebecca Lee Crumpler. Can you introduce us to Dr. Crumpler and why you called her an I've got this woman right at the beginning of your book, Black Women's Wellness?
Oh, well, thank you for allowing me. First of all, thank you for having me here this evening. And also, I would be happy to talk about Dr. Rebecca Lee Crumpler. She blazed the trail upon which I and many others now tread. Rebecca Lee, and really she was born Rebecca Davis in Delaware. She had an aunt who was a caregiver of people in the community and things like that. And I think Rebecca liked to see how her aunt was taking care of people. So Rebecca actually left Delaware, went to Boston, and became a nurse. And the doctors were so impressed with her quality of care, her intelligence, her dedication, that they recommended that she apply to medical school. So she did. She applied to the New England Female Medical College, and she was accepted. In fact, Harriet Beecher Stowe helped write a letter of recommendation for her. She was accepted into the school, and upon graduation in 1864, when I give presentations about her, I say that while the Civil War raged, in 1864, Rebecca Lee graduated from what is now Boston University School of Medicine. And what I find remarkable about her is not only did she endure those years in the school, again, white colleagues and fellow students, but when the war ended, she courageously did something I don't think a lot of people would have done. She actually left what she knew in Boston and went to Richmond, Virginia, to treat the recently freed slaves that the white doctors did not want to touch. And I just find that remarkable and brave and courageous. And she endured terrible conditions. And I've done a lot of research on her, and she basically sometimes was denied hospital privileges to admit patients. Sometimes her prescriptions were not honored by the pharmacists. And one other thing, if I may tell you, is I've read that people there would say that the MD behind her name stood for mule driver. Not medical doctor that she earned, but mule driver. But she endured, and she stayed there for about 3 years, a little bit more than 3 years, went back to Boston, started her practice and for women and children's care. And then she also eventually wrote a book dedicated to women's health and children's care.
Amazing. And you bring her up right in the beginning, right in the introduction to Black women's wellness. Tell me why you wanted to start on that note.
Well, one, I wanted to honor her as a physician. Secondly, not many people know her story, as you said, even. Uh, Her story is not in the history books, and people can call it CRT or whatever they want to call it. I think people need to just know more of what our history has been from back in those days. So I wanted, as a physician, to honor a physician upon whose path I tread, and to tell her story, just to get it out there. Even if no one reads anything else in the book, I said, let me at least give honor to Dr. Rebecca Lee. And so I was happy to do that. And also, interestingly about her, uh, I did not know about her even, and oddly, I ended up at the same medical school that later became Boston University School of Medicine. That's where I attended school. And I did not know about her really for many, many, many years. And I later, long story short, I later initiated an exhibit at BU Medical about her. And I got a proclamation from the governor, Ralph Northam, in Virginia in 2019 when he was going through his blackface scandal issue that he had going on. I said, let me reach out to him and see if he will maybe provide a little salve to the Black community and give some mention to this woman who served that community. So I was able to secure a proclamation from him. And then as a result of all that, someone in Boston realized that Dr. Rebecca Lee Crumpler did not have a headstone. For 125 years, she had no headstone. And so the Friends of the Hyde Park Library, they secured money, got a headstone, and then I got a story on NBC Nightly News. So that was just wonderful.
Dr. Rebecca Lee Crumpler, a tremendous groundbreaker in her time. And you here, Dr. McCloud, I would say a tremendous groundbreaker in our time. You've written the first book on Black women's wellness. Tell me, what do you think's going on that there had never been a book written before, this kind of guide focusing specifically on the health issues and health resources for Black women? What came about such that there was this? No one had ever done this before until you.
Well, actually, if I may, respectfully,
Please.
actually, years ago in the 90s, there was a book called Body and Soul that was written by Linda Villarosa, who actually was the executive editor or something titled at Essence Magazine. And so that was really kind of the first book geared to Black women in particular. And actually, I was asked to be a medical advisor to that book. So that was like,
okay.
Oh my God, that was good. And then in 2003, I wrote a book, Blessed Health, where I really basically just dealt with Black women can be very spiritual. We'll be in church every Sunday and choir rehearsal on Tuesday and Bible study on Wednesday and prayer meeting on Friday and passing out tracts on Saturday. We'll do this every week, but we won't go to the doctor one day a year to get our checkups done. So that was in 2003. But I think an issue really has been that, and I'm really, again, happy that Sounds True picked up on this particular book at this particular time, especially with COVID and ethnic health disparities coming to the fore. There had been, my understanding, a feeling in the publishing world that, and you can tell me if this is true or not, that Black people may not read about their health as much. Okay, they may not read these type books, but there's a need for that. And that may or may not have been true. I think to some degree, maybe not. But I think COVID brought to the fore of everybody's mind ethnic health disparities, that there are disparities, there are differences. People do need to pay attention, and that Black people need to not only rely on faith and prayer and still have a hesitancy about seeking medical care. So the timing of it was just a perfect segue to now come forward and Sounds True. I am grateful for, had the vision, and even my agent had the vision to say, this is something that needs to be brought out and needs to be brought to the masses. So that's what we hope to do.
And you start the book by saying, let's look at the state of Black women's health in the United States today. Can you share with us what that landscape is like? You're understanding of it, the most important metrics we need to understand, the most important statistics, and then also what do you think is underlying those statistics? Help us understand that.
Oh my goodness, well, there's so many metrics that Black women don't have the same successful healthcare outcomes as white women. And in the book, I'm happy to say I really wanted to make sure, because I've told people, in taking care of patients, I'm not a physician only for Black women. So I made sure to include uh, comparative data for everybody. I have Black, white, Hispanic, Asian, Native American women, graphs and charts, data from the CDC, Mayo Clinic. So I really have a comparative presentation of how one demographic fares compares to the other. But the fact does remain that for various reasons, Blacks, women and men, but we're talking women primarily, have higher rates of heart disease, obesity, diabetes, even though Native Americans have a high diabetic rate, cancer deaths. Now, white women, let's say with breast cancer, okay, whites will get breast cancer more frequently than we do, but we die at higher rates than white women do. So whites get breast cancer more often, a higher incidence of it, but Blacks have a higher incidence of deaths from those cancers. And another issue is, of course, maternal mortality and perinatal mortality. And then there's the HIV/AIDS crisis, which is still taking lives.
And Dr. McCloud, in identifying these issues, you write towards the end of the book, actually, that Black women's wellness was a hard book for you to write, and that these statistics and how Black health statistics are so far off the chart compared to others caused you a deep inquiry into help me understand, why is this so? Tell us what you discovered about the why. Why is this so?
Yes, I did have a hard time. For one, COVID, I wrote much of this during the COVID years. And so mentally, I think all of us were kind of languishing, as the word is, we were just kind of in this mental fog. But also when I was looking at the data, and I did extensive research on this book a few times over, because data changes every day. But it was painful to me as a Black female to see that over the years, over the decades, even over the centuries, but even now still, there are these disparities. There are these wide differences in some cases for some conditions. And what's troubling is, and I think I have a reason why this may be, what's troubling is that even for women with access to medical care, and for Black women with means and insurance, even those women still will lag behind when it comes to a successful healthcare outcome. And so what is the issue? What's the problem here? Why is this happening? And my take on this, and I've thought about this for years, is I think it has to do with something that's in the news right now, some of the psychosocial stress that Black women experience that white women do not experience. We're easily cast aside. People, even within the Black race, there's what we call colorism. The light-skinned girls are better and more attractive than the girls my color or darker. So there's colorism, that we have low marriage statistics. Again, the obesity issues. So there are issues that we experience that other people just don't have. And I think those psychosocial stressors that we feel, they can cause stress, physical stress, increase our cortisol, which we know will add to increased heart disease. It adds to diabetes. It can add to obesity. So I really think that's a major part of the missing piece. Okay, yeah, you may have money, you may have insurance, you may have a doctor right around the corner. But still, even those type women, I mean, heck, I get followed when I go into a store, when I'm just looking at some earrings on a little card for $20. I get followed. I get followed. And I mean, sometimes it's gotten to the point where I've even, I walk in this little gift shop or whatever, and the store clerk is over there, and I walk in, and next thing I know, she's, on my rear end. And to the point, even sometimes I've turned around and said, can I help you with something? You looking for something? I don't know what's in here, but can I help you? So it happens. I mean, I don't have, I'm a physician and I can afford this little $20 pair of earrings that I'm looking at on this little card here. So if we feel that, and I think a lot of people don't realize that this is something that happens every day. It's ever before us that we have to deal with that unspoken suspicion and look and worry and concern that people who are not people of color don't have to go through. So that stress every day, again, it affects your cortisol and other stress hormones. And I think that plays a role in getting these other conditions that we are more prone to suffer from.